The Five Rings Podcast, Toronto 2015 Pan Am Edition with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie. Here's Duane Rollins.
And welcome to Five Rings Podcast. I'm Duane Rollins. Kevin Laramie. He joins me as always, another Pan Am Edition. How are you today, Kevin, back in Montreal?
I'm doing great. Had a quick trip to Toronto. Was able to feel the excitement, the groan as well, and to feel the everything surrounding the Pan Am Games. And I have to say, the whole hype of traffic, transportation. There's a little bit more people, yes, but I have to say there's a certain happiness to the city and there's certain ease. I didn't have any trouble getting to venues I had to go to, and everything went smooth.
Yeah, I'm hearing the little known, what I suspected earlier. I've heard a few people articulate, I should say, that their commute is actually a little bit shorter during the Pan Am because so many people are staying off the roads and then choosing to take transit or chose to escape the city if they weren't interested in this. As I've said before, and I'll repeat it one quick last time right now, the Pan Am Games aren't the Olympics, and we understand that. But for those that do want to enjoy them, they're enjoying them a great deal. For those that aren't interested in it, they're just simply not going, but they're not being inconvenienced by it either. And I say that as a Torontonian. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased with it, but I've yet to hear, after all the complaining in the weeks leading up to this, I've yet to actually on the streets hear anyone moaning about them now, even if they don't care. I was talking to someone the other day that I typically gone to any Pan Am events. Said, oh, it's just not my thing. But, if my daughter wanted to go, I'd absolutely go, and I'm happy that people are enjoying them. And that's, I think, most people's attitudes towards them now that they're here. And, those that are enjoying it, and I've been down at Pan Am Park quite a bit, which is my favorite place to be in the city right now. I'm heading back down there as soon as we're done this show today. TFC plays, and then we're going to go catch some beach volleyball in the evening. Looking forward to that. So away we go. Kevin, let's get on with our medals for the day again, as we always do. And we'll start with you today. And what is your wood medal?
It's a little bit related to what we just talked about, but it's more the perception of failure. But in reality, it's a success. When I'm talking about people still to this day, I hear them talking about how in different podcasts, radio shows, TVs, they talk about, there's nobody at the games. It's not true. Crowds are actually really good. Toronto is the host has spent the most in the history of the Pan Am Games to host the games. And in some way, it shows in the stands because people are coming out to watch the games in droves. Sold out games. Tickets are almost selling out like hotcakes for many events. It's a success, but for some reason, a lot of people still have a perception of failure. But no, those games are a success, and that was impressed me when I was there and seeing the crowds and everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know who you're just lying right now if you're saying that they're a failure. There's no way, and I'm not even saying this biased, but there's just no logical way you can qualify the crowds as a failure in any way whatsoever. They've sold close to 1 million tickets now of the 1.2 million that they had made available. The major events, like when I'm talking about track and field and swimming, forget about it. You're not getting in. The diving was full, obviously. I mean, there's a big Canadian presence there. I've gone to, because I have eclectic taste. I've gone to handball the other day. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And yeah, there were still lots of seats there in a small venue, even so. But that's handball, and it has no history here. But you go to any event that has a history, has a connection to this country, and it's been sold out. And when I was at handball, I'll tell you, Kevin, the volleyball competition had started, and Canada happened to be playing. The lineup to get in there was mental. It just went and went and went and went. There had to be 3,000-4,000 people that were standing there patiently, most of them wearing red, ready to go. And that's been my experience. Those that are down there enjoying these games are enjoying them. And there's no cynicism. There's no, this isn't the Olympics, I'm so mad. There's none of that. It's just silly. Yes, you could still make an argument about pricing and costing and all that sort of stuff, and that's fair. But in terms of the actual event itself, if you want to enjoy it, you are. And I think that's maybe we'll leave it at that and I hate the term haters, but we'll use it here. Let the haters hate. My wood medal is a little less controllable, but nonetheless, it really did affect the competition this morning. The women's marathon ran today. I was out. I had to drop the other half off at work, so I was actually contributing to it because I was driving. But at any rate, the smog and the heat here today is outrageous, and it's really going to hurt the endurance events. It's really going to hurt like stuff that's happening outside. Not much you can do about it in a big city, other than to have made better choices years ago. But it's just not the nicest weather today, and it's unfortunate that it's going to affect the endurance competitions and competitions that are happening outside. So that's not really anything our organizers could do, but you never like to see smog and pollution and air quality affect a world-class event, and you hope to do better on a global sense when it comes to all that sort of stuff.
In a way, it's a good practice for Rio, though.
Yeah, and look, in Beijing, we experienced it a great deal, and Toronto's not normally a city that's overly smoggy. It really isn't. I mean, compared to other big cities in the world, it does pretty well. There's not a big manufacturing, sector here either that contributes to it. I can always tell the CN Tower test is how you can tell how the smog is. If you can look out your window and you're anywhere sort of in downtown or area like I am, and you can see the CN Tower clear as day, your air quality is pretty decent. When it's a little faded, you might have some problems. And then there's days when you look out and go, do we have a tower in this town? And today is a little closer to the latter, unfortunately, but we'll get through it. And the marathon did run off, and actually I'll go there with my bronze medal, and it is the gold medal champion, Gladys Tejeda, which is a Peruvian athlete. She ended up winning that marathon. It was a very competitive race. There was a Canadian that was in it quite late. She just finished off the podium. Not really our specialty, those high endurance races, but just the the athleticism and the way that they pushed through some poor conditions today made me think that they deserved a little bit of credit for doing that this morning. And hopefully by the time the men take it and the race walkers take it, and our friend from earlier this year will be in the race walking soon, so I'm looking forward to hope to go out and watch him walk past me very quickly. Evan Dumfrey. So I just wanted to give a hat tip to the marathon today and to the champion there. So that is my bronze medal. Kevin, yours?
My bronze is the Milton Velodrome. It's a spectacular venue. Watching the competitions that are still going on in the pursuit today, Team Pursuit, it's a great venue. The way it was built, it emphasizes that on the track, the banks are really steep. It's a little wider velodrome than the old model. It's a very fast velodrome, and it's something that's going to be interesting. That venue, not just interesting, I said that a lot, but what I mean is that venue is going to be important for the future of Canadian cycling. And if you look, I'm just a little story quickly, I'll tell you, Duane. It's in 2008, cyclist from Quebec, Martin Gilbert. He finished 16th in the Madison, which is an American type style race on the track for points. It's like sprints all around, 56 kilometers an hour average with peaks of 70 on that track. And that race, he qualified as 16th, and there was a top 18 going to Beijing, but he did not have any support by Cycling Canada. They were not supporting that race because they were so small. They were only focusing on certain part of the track and then the road. He did not even have a bike that was made for the track or specialized in his discipline. When he was in Beijing, he was loaned a bike from another team who basically took pity on his situation and eventually did not achieve the result he could, but that was one of the parties because he did not get the support and the training and the facilities to execute. He practiced for that race on a concrete track outside of Bromont, outside in the weather that's been weathered for the last 30 years. He did not have the right practice facilities. Now, with that velodrome, if that story ever occurs again, well, they have a place to practice. They have the right equipment with new sponsorship deals and new agreement with bike manufacturers like Look. You saw Team Canada today on a Look bike, and they all have great bike that are thousands, around $12,000 to $13,000 for a bike on track cycling. And now they actually have the equipment and the facilities necessary for the future. So a story like Martin Gilbert in Beijing in 2008, it's not going to repeat itself. And just that is, I think it's beneficial for the sport.
Yeah. There's, for some reason, as we saw, we talked about with No Boston Olympics earlier this year on this show, the commercials that I thought were kind of unfortunate, where they were making fun of velodromes and all that sort of stuff. For some reason, the velodrome it's like a target for those that want to like attack these kind of events and like the need for these type of facilities. I don't know why the velodrome is somehow special. I guess it's just not North American enough, or at least It's just not something that we see over here all the day. So I think there's no venue that the legacy plan is more important to than the Velodrome in Milton. To answer the critics about the need and the long-term sustainability of this, they really need to make sure that they get some programs started almost immediately. They engage the community almost immediately. They have ways that people can get out and understand what this is and try it. Have young kids get on the track and learn out there already so that it becomes something. And we're not going to produce world champions or Olympic champions overnight, but certainly having a facility in the largest population base in the country's got to help. I also think that they need to, I think this is the case for all of these new venues, is that someone hopefully is already, lobbying to get World Cup events, World Cup stops, World Championships even down the line into these facilities so that they continue to be used, so that people can understand their value and can keep them modern. Do the updates when they're needed in 10, 15 years. And I think that the Velodrome is front and center when it comes to that sort of thing.
Just to add to what you just said, it's true. If you're looking at Montreal, they renovated the whole diving and Olympic pool in the last year or last 2 years it took to renovate it, but it's open now. And they did that because the diving facilities and the pool are still used competitively and for training almost every day. And because of that, they renovated it, which wasn't the case 40 years ago with the Velodrome when they changed into a zoo in Montreal. But with the Milton Velodrome, facility was built solely for that purpose. And I think there's groundworks and blueprints in the future to keep it that way. And I really, really hope so. And I think that it's not just going to be beneficial for track cycling. The foundation, the muscle foundation and the bike skills learned on the track do transition eventually to a road career. If you look at Bradley Wiggins' example for Great Britain, Sir Bradley Wiggins, who won in 2012 the Tour de France and gold medals at Beijing on the track, on the road, he built his foundation on the track and was able to correlate that with a great road career. And yes, we had Ryder Eschedal won in 2012, I think, the Giro in 2012. That was almost a fluke, but if we want to see that happen again, well, at least there's a place now where that foundation is going to get built.
Yeah, question, Kevin. Is the Velodrome something that you can try and create community programs for so that people can do fitness, exercise kind of things there, like you could rent a bike maybe or whatever? Is that something that could happen, or is it too steep, too elite to accommodate sort of weekend hackers?
No, it is. In Europe, you have Masters League every night, people have bowling league with their cycling leagues where you go on the track all together and you have a Madison, you have a Pursuit, you have a Kirin, you're different type. Okay, the speeds and it's different scale than the Olympic athlete, but the fun and it's still there. And yes, there is in Masters event up until 90 years old when you have even World Championship in the track where there's the UCI Track World Championship, but then you have the Masters World Championship for every different level, different category. Yes, there is something to be created and games and league competitions for a community that could be held once a week, twice. You know what I'm saying? That is the case in the cycling culture.
Yeah, I think that, again, that's the key. Hopefully, and I don't know, maybe after these games are over in the fall, we can talk to someone out in Milton to find out what their long-term legacy plan is, because I would hope that they, again, almost immediately get people in Milton, people in Halton's the region around Milton, international listeners, out there and on that track and trying it, because I think that that's the key to sustaining this. You need community use to sustain it for elite use, I think. And hopefully they can do that. So anyway, we'll move on and see what your silver medal is, Kevin.
My silver medal is a little bit American focus. It's a wrestler, Brent Metcalf. It's not necessarily him. It's the fact that he won a gold medal in the freestyle wrestling 65 kilogram, under 65 kilogram, against a Cuban. So I thought it was fitting to have a United States-Cuba final with the new relationship between the two countries and everything up in the air for the next couple of years. In that aspect, I think it was almost a tongue-in-cheek to have USA-Cuba in the final. And obviously the American won, Brett Metcalf, for Iowa State. Yes, Iowa State Hawkeye alumni. And that brings me to the fact that in wrestling, United States has such an advantage just because of the NCAA college wrestling popularity, but more culture surrounding the wrestling in high school and college. Just in around the United States. And that gives them such a pool of wrestlers, such a talent pool that you don't see anywhere else. When you're going to Canada or to other Pan American countries or European countries, for say, they have wrestling clubs, they have a certain wrestling culture. If you go to places like Greece, they have it's really important, but it's still a little bit underground. It's like in your mind, shady, smelly, muggy gyms that they wrestle in, and usually creates one or two good wrestlers like Daniele Gali and stuff we saw in Canada. But with the United States, with the culture and basically the factory of wrestlers they have with the NCAA and the high school system, it gives them such an advantage when they go into big competitions like the Pan Am or the Olympics.
Yeah, it's a massive sport in the United States, and especially the high school, like you said, the high school, college level. There are parts of the U.S. where I would never say that it's as big as Friday Night Lights and the whole football culture, but there certainly is like an element of high school sports culture down there that does idolize the high school wrestler. I wrestled in high school. For those that don't know, I think I probably mentioned that on this show before. It is the most demanding sport I've ever participated in. I have a lot of respect for both the technical skill of a wrestler, of amateur wrestling, and of their physicality. It is just brutal physically. You have to be so strong, so fit to be a participant in it. That's why I wouldn't be able to do it anymore. So I do appreciate that sport a great deal, and I was very angry when they pulled it from the Olympics, and thankfully they fixed that. But certainly the U.S. has some wonderful tradition of that. The Canadians, we actually have some decent wrestlers, especially in the women's side. Canada was to its credit, I think, was one of the first countries to really embrace the women's side of the sport. Certainly we saw that with some, Tanya Vanderbeek from down in the Niagara, which is a woman that I actually met and interviewed once when I was working down there. Wonderful, humble athlete that represents all that you want in an Olympian. So it was there's a lot of tradition there. If you can get out and watch that, and I haven't been able to get up to it yet, I'm hoping to maybe to get out there at some point to see some of it. It's such a great sport. I can't say enough about the sport. I would recommend any kid that was talking to me about sports to do in high school, if they had a wrestling team, I would absolutely tell them to do that, because they're going to learn so much about discipline and about fitness and about technique and just the way to think out there. It's a thoughtful sport too. It's a great sport. You can tell, I think, by the way I'm talking about it. So I agree with that. All right. My silver medal. Sport, speaking of sports that I have a affinity for, but ones that I'm not exposed to in any way, I finally got to see live handball, Kevin.
How was that?
It was amazing. I saw the first day of the women's preliminary, and I know how fast-paced and exciting it is and how skilled they are. Like, I just was fascinated watching even something like them. So my silver medal is just basically handball in a general sense, because I just wanted to talk about going to handball. I hope everyone's okay with that. Just like they're taking a penalty, and like just the way that they can use their body so it looks like they're going forward, but they're like holding it back and moving their arm around while they're falling forward, and somehow they have such control over their body that they wait to the very last second where they like throw it where the keeper's not. The keepers are incredible to watch. The Cuban keeper I was watching, obviously she came from a soccer background, because she was stopping everything with her feet, like shots that were at her head level. She was like stopping them with her feet. Incredible to watch. There was this little a small petite woman that was on Uruguay that every time she'd go in the middle, and like you cannot understand how physical that sport is until you see it live, like how much like they allow, like it's illegal to clothesline people, as you can imagine, but it's a minor foul. If you like basically wrap your hands around someone's neck, it means that you're going to get the ball back in front, unless you were shooting. If you were shooting, you get a penalty shot. Like basketball is the closest North American sport that you can really compare, and I think that basketball athletes would learn handball quite well, but it's basketball with like gridiron football combined, because of the way they defend when you see it live. And again, I I knew the sport on TV, but to see it live, I think you take a whole new appreciation for it. They line up like across. They like basically put a straight line, like a line in football, and the idea is to not let the attack, and they keep the attacks trying to move the ball sideways, like just constant sideways movement to get the line moving so that they can create a hole, very much football-like, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So that they can burst through that hole and get a clear shot on goal. Because once you're in goal, the goalies are great, and they can do some amazing things, but they're still,
it's still a small ball in a big net, right?
Yeah, so that they're only going to stop so many things. The key is defensively is to maintain the integrity of that line. And that's I'm sorry for European listeners listening to this if you're hating the terms I'm using, but that's how I was learning and appreciating sport watching it, was comparing it to sports that I'm more familiar with. And like the stuff they do to block that penetration is just wild. And I think any North American that likes and appreciates a little bit of contact in their sports would really love it. So if you are in the GTA area, they are one of the tickets that are still pretty easy to get because no one knows what the hell it is, basically, outside of like the true geeks like myself. Get out and check it out. It is incredibly athletic and fast-paced, and it's going to be intuitive to you almost instantly what they're doing out there. Obviously, there's nuance to any sport that you're not necessarily going to pick up if you don't watch it all the time from the time you're little, but certainly just in a general, like, primal kind of way, you're going to immediately understand what's happening out there and appreciate it. And like I said, if you think about it like basketball meets football meets hockey, I think you'll get an idea of what's happening, and you'll really, really enjoy it. It was just fun, and I probably am going to, I tell the women, I'm probably going to come back and try and see the men before it's over. I may even go out to the medal round in that one. I'll spend the extra money to watch the medals do one. So fun times, and I wanted to talk about it.
No, I agree with you, Duane, and I think I can relate when you say it looks like football because American football, once the player has the ball, he cannot move. So he has to give the ball to a moving player. And how the players are trying to get away with it, it does have a American football type of vibe in it. And that's something we're not used to in other sports, seeing when, like Ultimate Frisbee has that as well. Once you have the ball or the Frisbee, you cannot move with it, and you have to execute the pass correctly, and your player that you're trying to get the pass to has to get open, and it's something we're not used to seeing. And that in a futsal setting, almost in a gymnasium, it's like a mix of all the sports we like. It, like you say, it's must be very impressive to watch live. I played it when I was like 7 years old in elementary school, but it's so long ago.
Yeah, you can move a little bit with it, to be clear. Like, you can dribble a little, but it's not like basketball where you can beat the man on the dribble, really. You can take like 2 strides and you have to bounce the ball, but it's passing is how the ball's moved. But other thing that's really incredible is how good they are with their hands. Makes sense. They're playing handball, right? Like how well they can catch things just everywhere around them, like one-handed catches and flips and behind the back and all that sort of jazz like that. So it's a lot of fun. And I'd go watch it again if you get a chance. That's moved to my gold medal. And if you were listening to our Commonwealth coverage last year, this is a guy that won a lot of my medals last year as well. The person that I arguably am saying is now probably the most accomplished Canadian swimmer of the last 25 years, at least, if not the most accomplished ever. I mean, Alex Ballman might have something to say about that. It's always hard to measure Alex Ballman because his peak years came in '84 when the boycott happened, but most of his main competitors were there. I think the Hungarians were actually there, which is the main person who's going in. So anyway, this isn't, the Five Rings 1984 edition. Maybe that's for later. But Ryan Cochran, the gold medalist in the 400-meter freestyle, he continues his victory lap in a lot of ways. He's already said Rio will be it for him, although he did make some hints the other day that he's been, quote-unquote, revitalized by being around the young Canadian swim team, which is cleaning up in the pool right now. I don't think anyone was shocked that he won the gold medal. He will go for double gold tonight in the 1,500-meter, of course, which is his specialty, the event in which he is a gold medal contender for Rio. What I'm giving him the gold medal for, though, today is also, it's career-based in a lot of ways, but it's also about the mere fact that he's here and he recognizes the importance of having a name and a face at the Pan Ams, even though the World Aquatics, which is a more important competition for him, likely. Symbolically, this one has value, but in terms of value, in terms of world pecking order, the Worlds are going to be a far bigger event for Cochran, whose biggest rivals are American and Australian. There's Chinese swimmer as well that's pretty competitive. So, guys that aren't there, the American's not there because he's preparing for the World. So he's perhaps, by racing twice this week at the home Pan Ams, to add his face to it, one of the few recognizable faces heading into this game, he may have sacrificed his ability to be competitive at his full level in the World Aquatics. And for that, I give him the gold medal, because I think that there is a greater value in many ways to him doing what he's doing symbolically and like future fundingly and things that won't necessarily benefit him directly, but will benefit the sport in Canada directly. For that, I give him my gold medal.
My gold medal, Duane, goes to the Brazil delegation. The rise of the Brazil athletes in those Pan American Games 1 year away from Rio. So you see all the investment, the funding necessary that were put in different athletic competition, different discipline that we're not used to see Brazil perform at. They're there now. They're third in the medal standing, right behind Canada and the United States. And it's great to see them perform in the sports where we're used to seeing them in soccer perform well, in volleyball, in those type of beach sports. But we're not used to seeing them in other sports, and they're rising at the right time to have a great showing on home country. And I think it's going to be very, very impressive next year to see the medal haul of Brazil in the actual Olympic Games. And it's going to be a factor of pride for the Brazil people next year. That I think will be, yes, it was there for the World Cup, but with the Brazil performance, it was different. With Brazil athletes in every single discipline next year, I think it'll bring that pride factor in Brazil to a different level, and it's just going to be a massive party in Rio.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's going to be a massive party in Rio regardless. But, yeah, absolutely. Brazil has invested a lot. I'll give you a concrete example that ties into what I said a few minutes ago, is that the current world women's handball champions are the Brazilians, and that is a departure from the normal power in that sport to go to South America rather than Eastern Europe. So that tells you a little bit about the investment that they've made. They've identified sports like that. The women's game in handball is evolving. It's kind of similar to soccer in the sense that it's not quite at the same level as it maybe should be in some of the countries that are powers. So Brazil recognized that and invested a lot of money in that team. And as a result, that team won the last World Championships. And that's just one example of many that we can probably see and will see next year. Good stuff there. You mentioned medal standings real quickly before we go. I had to have a little laugh. And if you heard me last year complaining about this, it's one of my big pet peeves. It has been for years, the North American tendency to rank medal standings by total medals rather than by golds, which is not the way the IOC does it, not the way the rest of the world does it. Canada followed the U.S.'s lead for years and years and years and years, and the medal standings were total medals. Well, lo and behold, I go and look at the medal standings today on Canadian sites, and they've listed it by golds. And I'm sure it was just a coincidence that the U.S. has more total medals and Canada has more golds than the U.S. I think that must have just been a coincidence, and they've just actually learned that that's the proper way to do it today. I think that must have been the case, Kevin.
Well, of course, right? Not because for the first time it turns out on our advantage if we put the gold first. No, it has nothing to do with that at all, Duane.
No. Canada over 100 medals. Obviously, the depth of field has played a big role in that, but it's good. Medals are medals, and they're exceeding what they did 4 years ago, and I think that's the bigger measure. And will that mean that we're going to get 60 medals in Rio? No, but 20 maybe, and that would be a nice little 2-week party on the summer side for Canada. All right, Kevin. Just a note for those that are wondering about Two Solitudes. We did have the breaking edition to talk about the Kyle Becker trade this week. We've been so overwhelmed. I've been so overwhelmed with traveling to events and doing this podcast and trying to get daily writing out there on this that it just hasn't been time this week. So consider this our Two Solitudes All-Star break, okay? And we'll be back with a full show on Monday where we will break down Canada's Gold Cup and everything like that. But Kevin and I, like I said, I have a lot on my plate, and Kevin has a lot on his plate. So forgive us, but we're not that sorry. It's our All-Star break. It's our holiday for the middle of the season. All right, Kevin, do you want to say goodbye?
And until next time for a Pan Am edition here or any other show available on Outdoor Studios Podcasting Network, well, have a great Pan Am Games and on your podium, be like Canada.